Hello everybody, welcome back to BareRose Garage. What are we doing today? Well, I was just about ready to pull this Slant 6 out of this 65 Dodge Dart, and I said, oh wait, there's a good video right here in the making. So let's deep dive in on something that is very rarely talked about when it comes to building a car or a hot rod, let's say. This doesn't apply to bone stock, you're just getting your car going. This applies to more into car building, hot rodding, let's just say. Let's just leave it up, hot rodding. Okay, one of our secrets up at the other shop on all of the cars that we have built is we take a lot of time on front end placement. Now granted, on some cars, if it's got fenders especially, you're limited to what you can do in there. Now, the reason I bring all of this up is because I'm playing with Mopar for the first time. And as I said in all of the other ones, this whole series is what Mopar looks like to somebody who's only ever messed with Fomoco or GM or Ford or Chevy, if you want to go to just that, even though it broadens out to all of them. Okay, let's just deep dive in and I'll show you what I found, because this one is a big one. It's a game changer in this Dart. It's my ultimate limitation. Let's dive in. Okay, you can see to start out with, I've got a level put across here. Now, why in the heck would I put a level across there? Well, if you look down, that lines up with the center of my front axle. Actually, there's no axle under there, but you get what I'm talking about. The center line of my wheel hub, all the way across to the other one. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, in chassis development, and when you're building your chassis, there's a golden rule in that. For every inch you go forward of that, I'm just going to use round, easy numbers just as an example, okay? These change. But from your center line of your front axle, for every inch you go forward of that, you add about 100 pounds to the front axle. You're shifting weight from the rear of the car to the front of the car. And it's drastic. It doesn't take much engine movement to add up to big weight differences. Now, you've heard me say over and over again, Chevy is easy. Why is Chevy so easy? Well, I'll show you. Because I just so happen to have my Chevy sitting right there. Yep. Okay. You look at this thing. Of course, everybody has seen the oil pan. Well, what you can also see in that oil pan is where the front cross member is. Then you look right here on these bosses. This is where the engine mounts on the cross member. Yeah, duh. Everybody knows that. But what's also going on there is your front end, your front axle is right here. A Chevy out of the box is designed to put all of that weight to the rear end. A Camaro will hook up right out of the box. You just drive it out from the dealership to the drag strip and whammo, you're already set and ready because of the way they place their engine on the front suspension. It's designed right from the factory to put that weight where it belongs, back on the rear tires. Now, everybody talks about the Fox body Mustang and how good they would hook up as well. Just so happens I got a 302 sitting right here out of a Fox body Mustang. And you can see on the 302, it's easy on these because they got that deep cut out there for the front cross member. What also follows with that front cross member is the A-arms. So on the Fox bodies, on the Mustangs. They're designed straight from the factory to put all of that weight to the back of the car. You can kind of see where I'm going with this now. Now let's take a look at Mopar. And you'll notice in there I talk about the Camaro and the Mustang. Why? Because they're the car size that closest relates to this Dart, or I guess what Mopar guys would call an A body. I don't know. I don't know the alphabet. All I know is cars. So it'd be like a Valiant, a Dart, or a Barracuda. They kind of all fit into that little car of the car companies. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, let's dive in here and take a look at what I found here. Okay, you can see on this, get you a little closer here so you can see it a little better. Yeah, I think you can see it there. On this Slant 6, leaning tower of very little power, every bit of the engine weight is forward from the front axle. So everything here is on the front end, making it hard to get this weight here to go back to the rear end. And I get to looking in there, there is no way I can push that engine back in order to get my weight transferred to the rear. Absolutely no way. Not without putting that in, without turning this car into a COE. And that ain't happening. I've had to work on one Camaro. What is it? I forget the generation. That 90s Camaro that the windshield went all the way almost to the front end. Yeah, try to do spark plugs in one of them things. Ain't doing it. I'm not pushing the engine back under the cow. And also, it's a whole lot of work. And because of you watch my other video on this, you'll see changing anything on a unibody car is, yeah, it's not a body on frame car. Everything here has to be here, or you have to re-engineer what you change, because everything on this car, right down to this bead roll on this front fender, is actually the frame of the car. So yeah, you gotta be careful messing with a unibody. Anyway, so what have I got here? When I look at this, you can see how far forward everything sits. The last time I looked at anything that was this drastic, it was a Cadillac. It was a front wheel drive Cadillac. Well, it might have been a little bit worse than this, but there's a reason for that. Or an Oldsmobile, Tornado. Yeah, well, they're basically kind of a Cadillac with a different body design. That's what an Oldsmobile Tornado front wheel drive car is, because it's front wheel drive. They want the weight up front. This thing, this is a front wheel drive setup. I'm looking at it and I can see immediately that, yeah, this is, I don't know if that's what the designers were going for. Like I said, I don't know Mopar much. Just looking at the design of this though, this is a front wheel drive setup that it just so happens to be rear wheel drive, because all of the weight is here. So, you seen in my other video, I said, oh my goodness, a Chevy would sure look nice in there. Well, if I put a Chevy in there, it's going to put a lot of weight up on the front end. If I put a Ford in it, yeah, it's going to put a lot of weight in the front end. Now, one of the good things about the small block Chevy, a small block Chevy and a small block Ford A small block Ford, like a 302, I'm comparing the 350 Chevy to the 302, just to make it easy. A 302 weighs about 100 pounds less than a 350 Chevy. But when you put them in the car, there's very little difference that you'll notice. Because the Chevy is set far enough back, it eliminates that extra 100 pounds off the front end. That was the key. And it takes that 100 pounds that it took off the front end and shifts it to the rear end, making the Camaro easy to hook up. Whereas the Ford, with the exact, their lighter, smaller engines, actually had a little more weight on the front end because of the way that they're set in there. A Chevy and a Ford are about 1 inch, 2 inches different in how they place in there to get around the front end designs of the two. So the Ford was always a little farther forward and the Chevy was farther back. Now, I know that's kind of not really comparing to Mopar, so let's switch on over and talk about Datsun 280Zs. They also ran a straight six, but their front axle is in front of the whole thing. That's what makes a 280Z handle like it does, hook up like it does, and just perform like it does. Because it's taken all of the weight of that straight six and sticking it in the rear end, even though it's in the front, because the front axle is in front of it. That's the whole key to the 280Z, 240Z, the Z car, Nissan. I'm showing my age, but the Datsuns. That's how they handled the track so well. That's how they were able. Those things will fly. That's why they were able to do it. Weight placement with that straight six. Mopar, on the other hand, I'm just going to cut to the skinny chase on this. The hell are you guys thinking? This is backwards. The challenges of Mopar, as seen through a guy who's only played with Fomoco and GM. Also a couple of those Datsuns. A buddy of mine had one, and yeah, we had a lot of fun in it. But this is backwards. So I got to figure out how to overcome this. So how am I going to overcome this? How am I going to get this weight to go back to where it needs to be? And more importantly, how am I going to be able to do it with a little bitty one of these? That's right, how to keep it within a budget build, but still have fun with it. Now, if all I wanted to do was just win the burnout contest, well, I'll tell you what. I think I know why they call it the Leaning Tower of Power. Because there's no weight in the rear end. Every bit of that weight is up here. I could go out and pull that other Slant 6, drop it in here, Lincoln weld that rear end, and probably win the burnout contest with a little 225 straight 6 in this little guy. Why? Because all of the weight is forward of the front axle, so it's trying to tip the car, take all the weight off the rear end, and I could just light those tires up for days. I mean, I could probably go out there to the railroad tracks and light them up and burn both of them all the way to my dad's place, about 1/8 of a mile from here. But I want to do more than just that with it. I want this car to actually perform on the track and to hook up. So what are we going to do with it there? I think I got the answer. Stay tuned and I'll show you how. But you got to get out there and keep that metal high. Stay tuned, because this is going to get wild. This is going to get crazy, and hopefully it doesn't eat up too much of this. Stay tuned.